Hi there YouTube, Big G back again with another video, and a little something different. Now I was paging through one of the online magazines, Big K. Now Big K was a magazine, computer magazine, specifically for a whole lot of different 8-bit micros from back in the day. And it brings back such a lot of nostalgia for me when I read through those old magazines, because I used to read them at the newsagents back in the day. And it was the only form or source of information on 8-bit computers, or any computers, or what was happening in the computer world. There was no internet or Google or anything like that where you could just at a press of a button find out what's happening in the computer world. You had to find out through computer magazines. Now I used to get subscribed to the Computer Weekly. I think it was Computer Weekly. It came out every week, that I remember fetching from the newsagents, which sort of didn't have a lot on gaming. And then I used to get once a month Big K. I loved the Big K magazine. Colorful, had a lot of articles in it, and it covered off on all the different computers that were available back in the day. And one of the articles I looked at, and because I'm a big MSX fanboy, I was reading this article on the MSX computers in the Big K magazine. And one part of the article that sort of grabbed my attention was creating your own MSX computer. So that sort of got me thinking, if I had the opportunity to put together a computer to whatever specifications I wanted, what would my ultimate 8-bit computer look like? So that got me thinking, and it's actually very interesting because there is such a large variety of 8-bits that are out there. Unlike computers today, you're either PC or you're Apple. I mean, that's the only choice you had. Back in the day, there were a multitude of computers to look at. So yeah, so this is just what my thoughts are, and agree, disagree with me in the comments below. But I sort of split it up into 3 categories. Okay, one being the introduction computer, so your basic bog standard ultimate basic computer that came in. Then your mid-range computer, then your high-end computer with all the bells and whistles, staying with 8-bit technology. Okay, so that's the ground rules. So okay, so let's start off with the introductory computer. Okay, so you got to look at a ZX Spectrum. I mean, that was the ultimate introductory computer. It had the cost factor, so it would have to have the cost factor of that ZX Spectrum. But at the same time, I was never a big fan of the ZX Spectrum's look and appeal. The computer that I thought was the best looking 8-bit introductory computer was this one. Now, if you have a look at this, the SpectraVideo 318. It's got the rubber keys, okay, for low cost. It's got a built-in joystick. It's got all the necessary ports that are required. It can take the 2 joysticks. The build quality is very good, but it's also got that reduction in the cost factor. So this would be my ultimate introductory look and feel for a computer. And obviously I'm also a big SpectraVideo fan. But when it came to the actual library that was available for this, it was very, very poor. So it didn't have much games or programs back in the day. So I would marry this SpectraVideo 318 together with the library that was available for the ZX Spectrum, which was huge. It was massive. It was probably one of the biggest libraries out there. But with the added advantage that this could do sprites, and yes, it was also a Z80. It could do sprites, also limited memory on this here. So much like your 16K Spectrum library that was out there, which was vast. I mean, it had games like Jetpack, which was fantastic, my all-time favorite 8-bit game, which ran on 16K computers. So I would marry that with this machine, being my ultimate introductory computer. Okay, so let's move on from there to what I feel would be the mid-range computer of choice for myself. Okay, now when I looked at computers, specifically paging through like magazines like the Big K and some of the other video and computer, I think it was called video computer magazine, or something like that. What always used to grab me was the look of the computer first off. Because I owned a Spectrum, and you know, the Spectrum doesn't have a fantastic look at all. It's small, it is sleek. In its own way, it is beautiful. Okay, it really is a well-designed introductory computer, but it just didn't have that what others had. I wasn't a big fan of the Commodore 64 look or the BBC look as such. What I liked was the MSX look. Okay, but specifically around the colors, much like the Amstrad. You know, I really like the Amstrad. If you look at the CPC 464 that I've got here, what I don't like about it is this plain sort of elongated shape of it, but I do like the coloring. I like the green, the red, the black keys, and so forth. So I like that sort of look and color. And if I had to look at my MSX Toshiba over here, there it carries on with the green and the blue, and this is an improvement to me in the form factor and shape and design of an 8-bit computer over the CPC 464 over here. But still, moving on from there, there was another computer, not an MSX computer, but something that I've never ever managed to find in the wild here in South Africa. It just was never available, and it's still something that I would love to own. And one day, I don't know, but they come at such a huge price on eBay, and that is the Enterprise 64. Now that encapsulates all the best parts of what I've just shown you. I love the coloring and the color scheme of the Enterprise 64. I love the shape of the Enterprise 64, together with the fact that it's got that built-in joystick, which harkens back to that SpectraVideo 318 that I showed you. Now, to me, that is simply the ultimate mid-range shape, look, and feel of what an 8-bit computer was. I think it was sort of the height of the design phase for 8-bit computers, the Enterprise 64, and I'd love to own one. Now, looking at the hardware side of it, I would marry, and yes, I'm not a Commodore 64 fanboy in any stage, but there's no denying the fact that the Commodore 64 had awesome games. It had an awesome library, and by far of the 8-bits, I would say it had I suppose the best library out there for games. It's got sprites and so forth, and you know, it had better scrolling, and the sound was fantastic. You know, the SID chip, I mean, guys are still messing around with SID chips today. So I would take the Enterprise 64, I would marry it with the Commodore 64 hardware, give it the library that the Commodore 64 would have, and I say that you would have the ultimate mid-range computer. Let's move on to the premium computer that I would design. Now, one, it would have to have, once again, premium keyboard. It would have to have all the bells and whistles built into it. So that would mean it would have to be able to take cartridges. It would have a floppy drive built into it. It would have all the necessary peripherals and ports available for you to use. And you know, that what I was thinking of, and the two that came to mind, it was sort of a toss-up between the two of them, was one, the MSX Panasonic Turbo R. I love the look of it. I mean, it says GT on it. I mean, it just exudes that look of power on it. I've never, again, I don't own one, but I've always loved the look of that Turbo R. And I mean, it says Turbo R on it as well. And the other ultimate premium 8-bit computer that I would have loved, the form factor and look of it, was the SpectraVideo 738 Express. I just love the look of this computer, and it's portable. So there weren't many portable computers back in the day. I think there was just the C64 that had a portable version with a little built-in monitor, which also looked great. But the 738, I would say, from a look and feel point of view, was the ultimate in my mind. And unfortunately, they also carry a hefty price range. You know, if you look on eBay, I think there's one at the moment on eBay going for about 250 euros. It's about 6,000 Rand. You know, I can buy a fully kitted out PC locally here in South Africa for that sort of price range. So, I mean, that was just, I mean, they go for crazy prices. But you know, one day I'd love to own one. It's definitely on my bucket list. And it was an 8-bit machine, and unfortunately, again, being MSX, it didn't have a vast library of games as such. And yeah, again, I would have to mate it to what I would say was the biggest library of games, and that would be the Commodore 64. So yeah, those are my choices when it comes to 8-bit computers. If I could design my own introductory level computer, which would be that SpectraVideo 318 with the ZX Spectrum library catalog for 16K games. Then from a mid-range, it would definitely be that Enterprise 64. I mean, it's just such a fantastic looking computer, with the coloring and that little joystick on the side, with the Commodore 64 library of games. And then for a premium offering, I think I would go for this SpectraVideo 738. I love the look, and it's portable, and it has all the bells and whistles built into it, together with the Commodore 64 library as well. Yeah, unfortunately, when it came to your Commodore 128 and your Spectrum 128s, you know, with the added memory and all that sort of thing, the games weren't that fantastic. They didn't really push it to the next level as such. Yes, the MSX Turbo R, I'm sure there were some fantastic games there as well. I mean, it had all the ability, but there just wasn't a vast range of games. So the ultimate computer would have to have the biggest range and library of games, which is your Commodore range, which is such a pity. So guys, yes, tell me what you would believe to be your ultimate introductory level computer. You know, keeping in mind that the memory requirements no greater than 32K with a rubber keyboard for cost, and your mid-range 64K with some more bells and whistles, and then 128K limit on a premium offering for 8-bit computers. So yeah, interesting to think about it. So guys, yeah, cheers from me, and remember, keep it retro.